There's a story that Vogue did that went viral. The headline was "Having a boyfriend is embarrassing."
They look at it from a glamour perspective and not from the grind that goes behind it.
And please do not use ChatGPT to tell you what that is. Please, that's a big challenge we face today where everyone's outsourcing their intellect.
What actually I could picture in my mind is Devil Wears Prada. I mean, that's one introduction we've all had. What really happens into a luxury media house?
I think that we do in general have a professionalism crisis in our country. I have never been in a situation where there's a crisis and the women don't just roll up their sleeves and get the job done.
One mistake brides make while choosing their outfit.
Deciding it based on what's on Instagram.
Welcome to the Wedding Podcast. In India, weddings are never just personal celebrations. They are cultural moments. They define trends, revive craft, and shape what an entire generation of brides begin to aspire for. But behind every dream wedding, you see online there is something deeper: strategy, storytelling, and a powerful cultural lens deciding what becomes iconic. Today, we have with us the force behind some of India's most influential bride narratives. So welcome to the show, Rochelle.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for making the time to be here. It means a lot to us.
It's our pleasure. I mean, you've given us this wonderful opportunity to talk about all the work we're doing at Vogue, so we're very grateful.
You know, weddings and Vogue go hand in hand.
I'm glad to hear you say that.
Because I think it's every bride's dream to feature on Vogue. So I think for the podcast, this is a big moment to have you here. And I'm going to dive in straight.
Okay.
So most people, of course, know you as the leading lady who's heading Vogue India. And you've come a long way from Goa. And, you know, I believe you started in radio and then you moved into becoming the digital pioneer of India.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that. No, I was just a digital journalist and, you know, I've been lucky to have wonderful mentors who've given me great opportunities and worked very hard. And I'm here today.
Take us a little more into your journey, no, Rochelle?
Sure, you know.
Because you know why? I'll tell you why.
Of course.
I feel this podcast not only is for brides, it is very aspirational and inspiring to a lot of younger people who are entering this space.
Right.
So your story is going to make a big difference.
Happy to. I mean, you know, I grew up in Goa and my parents were very particular about doing a lot of summer jobs and really not wasting time, even as a young person, and doing a lot of extracurricular activities. And I think at that time we didn't have phones, so we really had more hours in the day somehow. I feel like today we have our phones and they just suck the hours away.
So true.
So I, weirdly enough, used to work in the wedding industry because my father is a master of ceremonies in Goa and you know works in events and should not have been allowed to do this, but I have been a host at weddings at a very young age. I was like 15, yes, and in Goa we have what we call a compere or a master of ceremonies, somebody who sort of leads the weddings. And so I used to do that. So I know weddings inside out. I've grown up in a home where my dad was in the business and then for a little while I was in the business. Then when I came to Bombay at some point, my childhood friend and my roommate in Bombay was a wedding photographer. So somehow I've been at the epicenter of this.
It was always in your cosmic circle.
Really. So I do understand it and I'm very grateful today to be in a position where we get to really see what's happening in this space. We get to see people's aspirations. We get to fuel them, I think, through the shoots that we do and through the stories that we write. And it's very gratifying when we are able to tell a story well and it reaches out to so many people, it touches so many hearts, it gives people joy, it gives people hope. You know, we have a wonderful story coming up in our next issue where somebody who's been through a really difficult health crisis and how her partner committed to her before she went through her treatment. And so they had a smaller scale wedding before she started her treatment, and then when she successfully completed the treatment, they had the large wedding that they were talking about. So, you know, while we are talking about weddings, it's actually love. It's actually commitment. It's actually families coming together. And I'm a big supporter of this kind of belief system that people really can come together and support each other and love each other through difficult times. And if we can tell that story on our platform, then it's a privilege.
It's so lovely what you say because, at the podcast, we kind of just started a new segment called How I Met.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a series where we are talking about love and these stories which are so different about, people either having struggles or working around things. So yeah, I think eventually weddings somewhere are a output and product of love, and that's the story. And today it's all about narrative and storytelling.
Yes.
Everybody wants their story to be said.
Yes, that's true.
You've often talked about the hours and intensity that goes into the production of the Vogue Wedding Atelier.
Yes.
And anybody who is aspiring to be in the wedding media or in the wedding space, they look at it from a glamour perspective. And not from the grind that goes behind it.
Yeah.
So what's that misconception that you'd like to talk about, or something that people should get right when they think of this?
At Vogue, one of the things we're often accused of is being perfectionists, and I think that for me, luxury is in the details. It's the difference between the weight of the tissue, when you touch something, when you feel something, when you hear something, when you smell something, you know the difference between luxury or luxurious items and things that perhaps are not of that merit. So I think if you are attempting to do anything well, it requires effort, it requires stamina, consistency, and it requires a really thick skin. And that, I think, applies to any job. You've worked in the wedding industry yourself as a planner. You know the long hours. Finally, when the output looks fantastic, everybody only remembers the output. They don't remember how many hours it took to get it there.
Yeah.
And possibly multiple crises that you had to firefight and multiple pivots that you had to make because all best laid plans come undone. So the same is true for anything, and it's especially true for us at Vogue because we care so deeply about what we're putting out there because we really respect our readers.
Yes.
And we really treat our readers like, they are the ones in charge. And so we have to do right by them because they believe in us, they give us their time, they've invested in us. So we want to make sure that anybody who spends time with us leaves feeling special. And as someone who used to be in weddings before, I can tell you that that's exactly what weddings are about. Ultimately, you'll forgive everything. You'll forgive the fact that it rained on your special day. You'll forgive the fact that your lehenga tore or your heel broke or you had a zit. As long as you feel really special, and everything else falls into place.
It's something so great that you said about luxury, and I totally agree with you. Very often, a lot of people in our industry, coming from the planning side of things, we all use this word so loosely that I'm a luxury wedding planner, I do luxury weddings.
Yes.
But what it takes to really understand luxury is, like you said, it's the attention to details. It is like deep diving to the last bit, and a lot of, I would say, planning of plan A, B, C, D until wherever you need to.
Oh my
so
gosh,
that even if it doesn't go right, it is going to come across as you were prepared with everything.
I couldn't agree more. For us at Vogue, we really plan and overplan, and then, as you said, think of plan A, B, C, Z. And we're always encouraging our team to work together to figure out if things are going wrong and the person who is meant to fix it isn't in the room, can everybody else also figure out a solution? One of my philosophies as a leader is that a good leader makes themselves irrelevant. Because you train your team so well that they ultimately don't need you, and then you've done a good job. So I think that's true. And then in the luxury space particularly, people will remember. And of course, luxury comes with a price tag, right? Like you pay for that attention to detail. So if you don't deliver, I think people will remember that. So it's important for us to make sure we always do.
You just said that everybody thinks of Vogue as perfection. I'm sure in your team, when people come on board, maintaining that delivery of close to perfection or attention to details versus maintaining their enthusiasm, creativity. How do you strike that balance?
Gosh, if you figure out the answer, please tell me. Because it's a constant struggle. more than perfection, what I'm guided by is the pursuit of excellence. Because I think that idea of perfection evolves. Like what I think is good today, and writers, by the way, we are a self-loathing lot. We write something and we're satisfied with it, and the very next day we'll be like, oh my God, this is absolute garbage. How could I have written this? It's a constant self-improvement cycle. You know, we're like hamsters on a wheel. But what we try to do is start with the very best intentions, push each other as a team to achieve the best version of whatever it is that we're trying to do, which means that you have to be open to feedback, which means you have to have a thick skin, because if you're open to feedback, then you will get an honest answer.
Yeah.
So when people try to apply for jobs at Vogue and I interview them, like most of my time is spent discouraging them from joining, because I'm like, you have to be ready for a really rigorous activity that requires you every day to bring your best. And of course, it's not physically possible to do that. So there will be days when, you know, you're operating at 80% or at 60%. But other people then step in and help, and other people will help make sure that that ball doesn't drop, you know. So, and then we of course take breaks and we do things together. Just today we had an event in the morning and the whole team went downstairs for lunch, and we laughed about all the things that went wrong, and we told stories of our childhood. So it's equally important to have a sense of humor, and it's equally important to laugh at yourself when things are going wrong and to own it. I think the most important thing is just owning it. You know, if you've made a mistake, just admit that you've made a mistake, laugh about it, it's okay. It works for weddings also.
I agree. I can relate so much.
Yes.
And while you were saying this, what actually I could picture in my mind is Devil Wears Prada.
I get this a lot.
I mean, that's one introduction we've all had to what really happens into a luxury media house. And
I'm not sure that's what really happens,
but
I know that it's
exactly how when the
reference.
series Made in Heaven came.
Yes.
And as a planner, everybody asked me, is that what really happens? I said, 60% yes, 40% is made up.
Not everyone has Shobita Dhulipala walking around, unfortunately. Yeah.
And dressing up and having a glass of champagne. Wow, I wish.
I know, it's a good life. Yeah.
At Forces of Fashion, you've pushed fashion as an architect. In the bridal realm, where lehengas still dominate, how are you championing designers who break tradition to offer more experimental or modern design?
You know, so I'm very happy to say that the modern Indian bride already understands experimentation. It just takes on different meanings depending on who you are and what your intention for the wedding is. For example, there are some brides who want very modern silhouettes, so they will look for designers who have a more architectural-led point of view. There are designers and brides who want to look at heritage, want to look at culture. Then there are people who want to go completely left of center and do something that hasn't been done before, or they want to strip away all the paraphernalia that surrounds weddings and just embrace a bare luxury. So there's already so much experimentation going on, but I think that what I'm enjoying seeing is that every bride, or for that matter, groom, because they're equally important now, and they really
we don't talk about them.
We don't talk about them, but they're they're very confident and they want to show off their fashion credentials. But I would say that everybody wants to feel special on that day. They want to have their that red carpet moment, and they're doing it with intention, and they want to stand out. Even those who want to follow a trend, they're always looking for ideas that feel special and unique and personalized and custom to just their story. And that's a very exciting development, I would say. I mean, even the most recent celebrity wedding that we had, we just saw Vijay and Rashmika get married, and I thought it was so lovely that they celebrated their culture. They didn't look like everybody else, whether it was the jewelry, the ceremonies, the way Vijay himself was dressed. I thought it was something that will give people confidence to look into their personal histories and extract from that, rather than just look on Pinterest.
No, I agree. I always tell every couple that comes to us for curation that what's your story, and own your story.
Yeah.
You know?
That's great advice.
You know, instead of just always bringing in references of, okay, this is what looks good, this is what I want, and confusing and clouding your mind. You know, just go with what your gut says, what do you truly want. And those are the most beautiful weddings we've been able to do.
100%. And I think that when in doubt, hire an expert. And listen to the expert.
I have a long story to say, but I'm going to cut it short by saying, today what is happening is that people are getting experts but not listening to them. Everybody is so influenced with social media.
I agree.
And anyway, like I said, I'm not going to complain and open my...
That's our second episode.
You know, with global luxury facing headwinds and, you know, consumer behavior evolving, you know, the Indian wedding market is shifting and shifting very, very quickly at great pace. Perhaps towards this craft, authenticity or value towards splendor, what is that you see here, you know, in the shift?
I don't think that craft has ever been a compromise. I think that splendor maybe, again, takes on different shapes and forms. Like, you know, some people may spend on having giant venues and over-the-top production, and some people may spend heavily on the craft and they get single edition saris, or maybe they spend it on the honeymoon and they spend it on themselves and they don't want to spend it on 600 people, of which they only know maybe 50. So I think that splendor is taking on different meanings, but craft is increasingly becoming important as people have more self-confidence, as people have more curiosity about their heritage. And I'm also happy to see that there's a sustainable mindset that's setting in, and everybody's sort of asking, like, is this excessive? Is there a way to reuse it? Is there a way not to just add more waste to what is happening? Whether that's in the number of dishes that they serve at a wedding. I mean, there was a point where there were like 200 dishes. Who is eating 200 dishes? Who's even able to taste like 50 things, right? So I think that now couples are becoming more intentional with just the way they're planning their weddings. And I'm very happy to see like these mindful choices being made. We fully encourage that through the Vogue Wedding Atelier.
You know, in all of India, with culture being so diverse from north to down south, what I realize is that mindfulness towards spend, towards sustainability is so different in every region of India.
That's true.
Do you see that like that?
I do. But I think the Indian consumer is becoming very smart. They know exactly where to spend their money. So maybe for some people, the expense will be in a piece of jewelry, but that piece of jewelry will stay with you for generations perhaps, and you'll pass it on. You know, so maybe the number itself can be somewhat prohibitive at times, and you might get shocked when you hear how much something cost. But I think that where they're choosing to spend that is starting to become quite intelligent, you know. And I'm seeing more and more weddings, as you know, we get a lot of people writing to us asking to be featured, and I'm seeing more and more weddings where the couples are actually the ones telling their parents, like, please, I don't want to spend so much money. Like, let's keep the wedding smaller. We've been hearing of this trend of micro weddings. Actually, we wrote about it in our current issue, where 30 guests, 20 guests. The one of the weddings that we did had 9 guests. I'm like, 9 guests? How do you even achieve that? That's like that should really be studied, you know. But they were able to have a Lake Como wedding. They took 9 people, like their closest family members, and they said that it felt so wonderful because they were able to actually spend time and make memories together. And they did everything together, and that entire time that they were there celebrating a wedding, you know, there was so much laughter and so many stories being exchanged, and it's something that will stay with them forever. So I do think that splendor is just changing in the way that we sort of manifest it in real life.
I'm so curious to know if this is an Indian family.
It is an Indian family.
But not from India for sure.
No, I think they are actually.
Really?
They are. But, you know, potentially they had another party where they were able to celebrate with everyone. But the key wedding elements were just 9 people. It was just the bride, the groom, and their immediate family. And there was a sweet grandmother also there. So I think that's,
you know,
it was very cool.
I've so often been this referee trying to, you know, be this person in between the parents and the bride and the groom, where exactly today the mindset is, why don't you just give me this money and let me have a small wedding? And the parents are, no, but we've attended so many, and we have to give back.
Exactly.
We have to call those 800 people.
Exactly. But I mean, couples are fighting back, and I think it's a smart, we're living in a world where things are becoming so expensive. I mean, everything is expensive, right? So I think it is very sensible, and I'm glad to see people exercising that intelligence, that they're like, let's take this money and put it to better use.
Yeah.
Let's do weddings, but do it in a way that doesn't feel like we are just forced to sit here like smiling gudiyas, and actually this is about everybody except us.
And not knowing half the crowd that's attending my wedding.
Exactly.
For an emerging bridal designer, other than just the aesthetics or what looks great, what is it that else that you look for a brand who's emerging and great to be featured?
We always look for a unique voice. And what I mean by unique voice is like, why does this brand exist? What is the designer trying to do? Is there a gap they're trying to fill? And if they are, what is that gap?
Yeah.
I think that raison d'etre that we, as we say, is very important. And then, of course, we look for quality, we look for consistency, we look for a craft focus. Of course, if it's bridal wear, you have to have a very strong craft background. But equally important for us to see, like, what is their contribution to the industry in general? Aesthetics matter, but beyond a point, aesthetics will only take you so far.
Yeah.
And I think that's, as you said, everybody wants a narrative, everybody wants a story. But I think the ethos behind the brand matters a lot to us. So we are very open to discovering younger designers. We do love to champion labels that are trying to do things differently, and we have a lot of people who have entered the Vogue ecosystem and benefited greatly from that. So yeah, I mean, it's a great story, it's the right intention, it's a craft focus. And I think today, in fact, we had a meeting with a bunch of young designers, and what I was telling them is that to call yourself a luxury designer, every touch point is equally important. The story matters no matter how someone engages with you, right? Like whether they came into the store, or did they meet you online, or did they speak to you on social media. Then when they make the purchase, how easy was that? How well did you treat the customer? And then the after sales, service is just as important. And I think that sometimes we get so tied down by these like minor details that we're forgetting to look at the bigger picture. And of course, sometimes designers don't have enough people on their team to manage all of this. But the communication with the consumer is so critical, because at the end of the day, if they're coming to you for their bridal looks, they're coming to you for a very important part of their life, right? And they're expecting a certain level of service. So that I think is also important. And if I were to have a word of advice for any young designer, I would say get your basics right. Like a lot of designers ask me like, I want to go global. I'm like, but do you have your basics right? Do you have your delivery right? Do you have your after sales service right? Do you have your communication with the consumer right? That these are the things you need. These are the ducks you need to put in a row first before you can have any larger, grander aspirations.
Creativity, I think when, from a business angle, when you are in depth of business, I've seen a lot of creative people stagnate, where they, after a point, I feel that, they are so engrossed in business, delivery, great service, but creativity somewhere takes a back seat. What's your advice to designers to always keep that going, to make sure they're coming up with something more meaningful,
Yeah. I don't think creative people have to do everything. Now, I know, of course, it's challenging because you work with limited budgets and you want to make sure that you know every element of your business, but perhaps you can get your family involved and maybe somebody else can take on the parts of the business that don't come naturally to you. I mean, I myself, as a creative person, I get so excited by new ideas that I oftentimes drop the ball when it comes to seeing an idea through to the end result. And that's when it's so important to build a team, a team that you trust, because I'm not a process person, but I surround myself with process people so that my weaknesses or my areas for improvement can be buffered by their strengths.
Totally agree.
Right? So you don't have to do everything.
Yeah.
You just have to know what your strengths are. Of course, work on your areas of improvement. It doesn't mean that if you, this just doesn't come naturally to me, I don't want to touch it at all. I mean, I look at Excel sheets, so it's something I've learned to do in this role. And I think that that's the way to really have a more
yeah.
holistic,
I
well-rounded
totally agree
approach.
with
You really can't physically be
because
everywhere.
creative people are not always the best business people, I feel.
I mean, you're being very kind when you're saying not always the best.
They aren't at
I think
all.
that there are very rare exceptions to this rule. Yeah.
The the Vogue wedding book serves as a planning guide to most of the brides. How important is a location identity, for being featured or having an editorial recommendation for couples in their early planning stages?
I think location is becoming more and more the main character of the wedding,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because it lends itself to so many different elements of the wedding.
True.
And when it comes to the Vogue wedding book specifically, we obviously don't want everything to look the same
Yeah.
from issue to issue. We want for people to really escape into this world that the couple has corseted themselves within. So I think that location is something that we pay attention to. Now, it needs to feel authentic to the story.
Yeah.
So we've had some wonderful locations, and again, it doesn't have to be something very expensive. I think there's a recent wedding that we were discussing in the office where the bride and groom got married in the bride's backyard. And I think that is equally a beautiful story, if as opposed to like somebody who decides to get married in a palatial Haveli or Lake Como, which seems to be a very popular location, or on the sands of Cancun. All of these locations are wonderful if they seem authentic to the story and if they make sense.
Yeah.
Recently, we did a wedding that went viral. It was Devanshi and Pranoy got married, in this Haveli, but it's not the obvious ones in Rajasthan. It was something different, and they had wonderful artistic interventions throughout the space, and that wedding went viral because it was so unique, but it was so them that everybody was like, oh, we're so happy to see personal style and individuality shine through a wedding. For couples that are looking for a location, not that I'm a wedding specialist, but if you ask my point of view, I think that it has to fit into that story. It can't be performative, or shouldn't be performative.
I think the vision a couple has for their wedding is so important. What route do they take, One of the most important tips again that I give is first sit and break it down. What do you really want to achieve at the end of the day, because this whole going random, first going into location, then going into something, you don't achieve that. It's not seamless.
Right.
Doesn't seem seamless.
Absolutely,
The wedding ecosystem is getting so saturated and growing at crazy pace, From an editorial lens, what do you think is important for a brand to really stand out? It could be anything, not just from a designer's perspective. It could be a planner, it could be anybody from the ecosystem.
I think we always look for quality, honestly. Like for us, we can tell the difference, and what I was saying earlier about attention to detail, for it to come from a genuine place, for the voice to be interesting and unique, and it's not just another brand that looks exactly like 20 other brands that we saw before. If you're talking about planner, like what is it that you're bringing to the table that really makes you stand out and makes people want you to be at the helm of their wedding? So I really encourage people to spend some time thinking about that, because everyone wants to start a business, everybody wants to do something, but they just mood board it to a point where there is nothing new or special or different, because they're just constantly referencing what people have already done. So while of course I do understand that people need mood boards because you need to have some sort of visual direction, but I think you need to know who you are and what you stand for. And please do not use ChatGPT to tell you what that is. Please, that's a big challenge we face today, where everyone's outsourcing their intellect to ChatGPT.
We've just had this in our previous episode, a long question on this. But yeah, you're right. And I also feel the lines are getting so blurred right now, because unlike in the Western world, where I see, your core competence is so well defined. If you're a planner who is not a designer, you go with those kind of services. And you are pitching yourself only as a planner who puts things together, who's a curator at the helm. And if you're a designer, that's your specialty. Within the Indian ecosystem, what I see largely what's happening is there's so much blurred lines. A designer's jumping and becoming a planner's very conveniently rolling out mood boards and designs when they are not trained designers. So I hear what you say when it comes to quality, and I think it's a long way for us to really define this industry in a more, I would say, a more professional manner. I'll be honest, to a large extent, and I see clients losing a lot of faith because of that. I don't know if you keep getting that feedback.
I think that we do in general have a professionalism crisis in our country, because I think it's not something that we're trained in, it's not something that too many people take seriously. Surely if that's something I'm facing in my world, I imagine that you're facing similar challenges in yours and across the board, you know. If we really want to compete with the best of the best globally, I think we have to start taking the job seriously. We have to really understand what it means to be a professional, what it means to rise above whatever challenges we're facing in that particular moment. So I'm hoping that conversations like this will help move the needle on that.
Absolutely. This industry is often populated by women at many touch points, but led by very few at the top.
Okay.
You clearly are one of them. What is that one advice to female wedding entrepreneurs or creatives, creative people in the industry, claiming leadership roles, is that will come from you?
My advice to women in this industry is the same as my advice to women in general, is to recognize that women have a unique combination of competence and creativity and the ability to find the attention to detail while also having a bigger picture perspective. You know, we often talk about emotional intelligence, and yes, we have that in spades, but I have never been in a situation where there's a crisis and the women don't just roll up their sleeves and get the job done. And in fact, like you said, they'll think of plan A, B, C, Z. It's just so second nature to us, right? And we don't talk about that enough. We don't talk about how women are really problem solvers, and we can think of solutions on the fly. So I wish that more girls, women in general, recognized those inner strengths and leaned into it. And then, of course, the power of collaboration, because I think we really understand that we need to work together to get something done. When push comes to shove, we're able to make that happen. So yeah, just lean into these strengths and recognize that if you speak up and you take up space and you are unafraid to put your hand up and say, hey, that job needs doing, I'll get it done. 9 out of 10 times it works out. It works out.
Yeah, I think we are bigger hustlers, clearly.
I mean, yes, look at this. Look at the two of us. We are both hustlers here talking about how we made it work.
So today's brides are exposed to an overwhelming amount of inspiration online. I was just telling you, everything's about social media. And from your vantage point at Vogue, what advice would you give a bride? Meaningful research, how should she go about, how to evaluate, how to really go forward?
I know what you mean. There's like a fatigue of just seeing the same imagery over and over again, and then you don't even realize because it's your algorithm feeding you more of the same, right? Yeah. So my advice would be start with the personal and then move outwards. Like what you said earlier, what are you really trying to do? Like what do you really want to achieve? I think that's what we should all start with. Like this is hopefully a once in a lifetime. I mean, I'm no offense to anyone, but presumably when you're getting married, you're assuming that this is the one and done situation. So then at that point, you have to really think very deeply about what matters to you, and not just what matters to you today for that social media moment to go viral, but what's going to matter to you today, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. You don't want to look back and be like, oh, the intention was not the right one, And if you start with, I think, what's personal and what's meaningful and then move outwards, it'll always be wonderful and special because it starts from the right place.
Rochelle, that one story that you think stays with you always, I mean, you all do so many editorials and so many couples you hear of, meet, understand their story. Something, even if you don't want to name, but something that touched your heart.
I'm definitely not going to name.
Something that touched your heart and you always feel this was so meaningful.
We do a lot of these stories, and I think the one that I was talking about earlier of this couple that committed to each other at a very difficult time in their lives, and surely they must have had so much fear and trepidation because they had no idea what the outcome of that was going to be. And especially now when we have, this whole trend where young women are saying that having a boyfriend is embarrassing because of whatever reasons. I mean,
Sorry, what's that?
There's a story that Vogue did that went viral,
Okay.
which the headline was "Having a boyfriend is embarrassing," and it went so viral that it was like name dropped in every conversation. So I feel that, you know, to see a story like this come to fruition, where you have a couple that has stood by each other in the most difficult times, the families have really stood by them, and then they've celebrated the successful outcome of that, you know, her medical journey. I think that story is really going to touch a lot of people's hearts.
It's very meaningful.
Especially in an Indian context. Because I think in India, unfortunately, you know, we tend to airbrush situations. We don't want to talk about difficult situations. And very often you'll hear, I mean, I don't know if it's specific to India, I'm sure this is true everywhere. A couple is planning to get married, and then there's like, let's say, a difficult discovery, like someone is going through a hard time medically. I'm sure there must have been so much pressure on the groom to not get married, to not hitch sort of himself to this situation where there's no predictable outcome. So I think it will give people a lot of hope to know that if you love each other and you commit to each other, you can see yourself through some really difficult times and come out shining.
No, this is very special what you said. It's really very special.
Thank you.
The Vogue Wedding Atelier isn't just a showcase. It's one of the most aspirational and well-curated platforms in the Indian wedding space. How do you select the designers and brands who make it to the floor?
You know, my question is going to get a bit boring because it's going to be the same, but it's really about quality. It's really about having a unique point of view. And we look for designers who are the most credible in their spaces. So it doesn't mean that you have to be only, you know, a celebrity designer or super well-known or have thousands of followers on Instagram, or millions actually, thousands means nothing today. It's more than that. It's really, you know, what is the quality and what is the story that you're bringing, because we have such a refined audience that's coming there. You know, these are people who engage with luxury every day. They have so many options to choose from. So to really make it worth their while, we look for a curation that every designer is something different, and they are all united by their commitment to quality.
You know, there's always a thought that luxury and sustainability don't go hand in hand. You know, also as I plan luxury weddings, I do know that the splendor, the splurge, the, you know, going a little extra is always there. And any thoughts on how sustainability can be stitched in or bought in? And not really be thought of that sustainability is something else and luxury is totally something else.
I think it starts with understanding what it means to be sustainable. Sustainable doesn't mean you have to wear khadi and you have to use like coconut husk as your decor.
I just said that a few days ago. I agree with you.
Yeah, but sustainability can be like, maybe you shop with a designer who has beautiful, opulent garments, but all the karigars that the designer works with are well paid, and you know the benefits of that garment and all that hard work, they're reaping the true benefits of their labor. And sustainability can be like, okay, we want to have a destination wedding, but we're going to engage when we travel to, you know, whether it's Mexico, whether it's Italy, or whether it's Scandinavia, we're going to engage with the local communities, and we're going to make sure that the carbon footprint beyond what it takes to fly people in is reduced. Or at least we are providing a sustainable form of employment to, you know, the people, the locals. Or maybe sustainability is investing in pieces that are very expensive, but that you can then wear in multiple ways for many years to come. So whether that's in jewelry or whether that's in garments or footwear. So I do think that there isn't a one-size-fits-all template understanding of sustainability. I would just encourage people to ask the question, like, how can we have this fairy tale wedding that perhaps everyone has dreamed of, but how can we make certain sustainable choices along the way? And that could just be in simple ways, right? Maybe we say we're not going to use any single-use plastic. Or maybe we're going to say that instead of, like I said, the 200-dish wedding, maybe we do 50, and they're the best things that anybody could taste, and it's made with local produce, and it's made engaging with the local community. And we really want to reduce wastage. So I think there are many ways to do it. It's just about asking those questions and being very...
And it's also the intention to have that, marry it well with what you really want to do. I mean that angle has to come in, I feel, at some point.
I feel so, and I think that people are doing it. And sometimes something as simple as not opting for a physical invite and just doing an e-invite, even something like that reduces the amount of waste. Or if it is a physical invite, and at Vogue Wedding Atelier we have people who make beautiful invitations, but it's always something that goes beyond just that one moment. Maybe it's a wonderful silver tray, or maybe it's a platter with food in it, or it's always meant to last. And I think that's the often forgotten side of luxury, is the point of luxury is not an indulgent splurge that is temporary. It's meant to be an intentional purchase that lasts for a long time and really stays with you.
Culturally, what do you see is that one thing that you really feel should be revived in the wedding segment?
That's an interesting question. If you are let's say you're Kashmiri, or you're Goan, or you're Punjabi, or you're from Karnataka, and if all these weddings start to look the same, I think that homogenization of weddings is something that I personally find to be a bit, it's a bit boring, honestly. And we live in a country that is so rich with so many incredible crafts, traditions, food. I mean, why are we serving pasta at weddings? Why am I not eating what is local and unique? And if it's, let's say it's a Gujarati couple getting married, or maybe it's a blended marriage, maybe it's people from different communities, we should really be using that opportunity to showcase the best of our culture. Though again, please do whatever it is that works for you. I just think this is a great opportunity and should not be missed. I know that even though I am Goan and I go to a Goan wedding, I'm most excited by the Goan food. I don't want to eat the 63rd pasta of my life. It's okay, I'm heading straight for the...
I was quite hoping this answer, because I also feel traditions somewhere are going out of the window, and to revive them in small ways.
I mean, they can be reinvented. They could be reinvented in ways that are meaningful to you and feel modern. But I do think that I get a bit sad when I see that couples are opting for a more homogenized version of weddings where everything starts to look the same. Because as part of the Vogue Wedding Atelier celebrations, we did a 9-city tour last year. I was literally hopping from one city to another. And it was so wonderful to see Indian culture evolving in all of these cities, whether it was Ahmedabad or Chennai or Calcutta, Jaipur. Every place has something that makes it so special. So why would you sacrifice that to just be one of, a mass? That doesn't work for me at all.
You hit the nail.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And before we go, we have this, we took this from Karan Johar.
Oh, okay. Where's my hamper? Am I getting that?
So we call it the pink frame, and one word answer, one sentence answer,
I'm
whatever.
terrible with one word answers. I just want to warn you, but sure.
So one bridal trend you think is overrated?
This all-white palette.
Oh my God! Rochelle, I think you're my soul sister. You speak my heart. One timeless wedding element that will never go out of style.
Emotion being at the center of a wedding.
One region in India whose bridal aesthetics deserve a spotlight.
I feel like the South is just becoming more and more elegant and stunning, and the confidence
and
the jewelry, the drapes, just the joy on their faces. I feel like we have a lot to learn.
One mistake brides make while choosing their outfit.
Deciding it based on what's on Instagram.
Minimal wedding or maximum wedding? What's winning? I know the answer, but I must hear it from you.
No, honestly, I was going to say that you do you. Just make it your own. Whatever it is that you choose, just own it and be happy with it. And just have fun. I think that's the more important thing.
Final one. 3 words to describe the modern Indian bride.
I would say confident, self-aware, and joyful, hopefully.
With that, it's a wrap. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Hope you've loved this episode. If you have, like, follow and share it. Please do that.